all over every social media network. And today we're going to get right to it. We're going to talk about the Mike Brown the shooting, or killing rather, because that's what happened to him. He's dead now. Darren Wilson killed him. Unfortunately, he's dead, and we can't bring him back. But this is a very interesting story, because after everything has been done, and after he did not get indicted, which he should have been, he decides to go on an ABC interview the next day, in which he gets paid almost $500,000 from what sources say. So obviously, he's going to be able to live a kind of okay life with that money, according to him, because God will take it right away. But anyway, we're going to get into the interview. We're going to talk about what happens during this interview that can damage Darren Wilson in the federal investigation. Because if you watch the interview, he tells things that just don't match up. So I'm going to get right to it. Turn this TV on, and we're going to get right to it.
I'd gone to open the door and get out of the car. And when I did so, as I was opening the door, I said, "Hey, come here for a minute."
Okay, so we start off like this. He said he opened the door and he said, "Come here for a minute." Saying "come here for a minute" indicates that they were not directly on the side of the car. And if you watch the interview, he says that he backed up to block off the street, which indicates that he wasn't even next to the two of the suspects. And so it seems to be that there's some distance between him and Mike Brown and Dorian. So that distance right there is very crucial to what is being said during this interview. Because if there was distance between them, and it had to be a good distance for him to say "come here," if there was a good distance between them, how does Mike Brown appear to be knocking the door right in as soon as he opens the door, or even pushing the door? So is he trying to say that Mike Brown walked right up to the car and just pushed the car door closed as at the same time that he was getting out? That's a good question.
And that's when he turned and said, "What the are you going to do about it?" and slammed my door shut on me.
Slam the door shut?
Yes. I used my door to try and push him back and yell at him to get back. And again, he just pushed the door shut and just stares at me.
So he says that's when he turned, said, "What the F are you going to do about it?" and closed the door shut on him. So he turned. I'm not sure which way he turned, but let's keep that in mind. He turned. He said, "What the F are you going to do about it?" And then he shut the door. So was he in a good distance away so that he had to turn? Or was he, this remote is bugging out. Was he in a good distance away? Or was he directly beside the car? Because it's kind of confusing to me.
I used my door to try and push him back and yell at him to get back. And again, he just pushed the door shut and just stares at me. And as I look back at him, all of a sudden, punches start flying.
He pushed the door shut and he stared at him. I wonder what was going on through his mind. Did he daydream for a second? Because if someone pushed my door shut and I was a police officer and then just stared at me, what was that? What did that feel? If they did that to me, I'd either try to come out again or pull off or do something to make sure that that person's not just staring at me again, even though I don't even think that happened, because that just seems weird for somebody to push the door closed and just stare at you. I'm not sure why Mike Brown didn't run at that time after he pushed the door closed, or maybe Mike Brown was just a gangster who wanted to just close the door and stare at him. Let's see what happened next.
And as I look back at him, all of a sudden, punches start flying.
He threw the first punch?
Yes. He threw the first one and hit me in the left side of my face.
Because, you know, some of the witnesses have said that they saw you trying to pull him into the car?
That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer.
Some of the witnesses said that he tried to pull you in the car. This is what he said, which is a fact. If you hear the crack in his voice when he says that will be against every training. Let's hear the crack in his voice again.
That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer. I don't know what or how many hit me after that. I just know there was a barrage of swinging and grabbing and pulling for about 10 seconds.
And then what?
I reached out my window with my right hand to grab onto his forearm because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had.
Now, let's keep in mind that Mike Brown has been said to be so powerful by this guy. You're going to hear him how he describes Mike Brown as if he was so strong. And I want you to know that if you look at the pictures from the punch itself, you would see that there is no bruise. And we all know that white people turn red when you pluck them. Okay? So if that's the case, and he was so powerful and you felt that hit so strong, why wouldn't he have a bruise, a knot, swelling, something? Let's keep it going.
I don't know what or how many hit me after that. I just know there was a barrage of swinging and grabbing and pulling.
Swinging, grabbing, and pulling. Now, obviously, he did tussle too. He had something to do with that pulling, because if someone's just pulling on you and you're not doing anything back, of course that person's going to overpower you, so you have to push them away or pull them. Now, you'll hear in this interview that he says he did not pull him. I mean, you had to. You had to pull him towards the car. You had to pull him somehow, push him somehow. Witnesses have said that they seen him grab him outside the car. You had to do that, regardless if you did it first or last or during the tussle. You had to do it, but he denies it.
I had reached out my window with my right hand to grab onto his forearm because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was.
Hulk Hogan?
He was very large. Very powerful man.
You're a pretty big guy.
Yeah, I'm above average.
He's describing this guy as he's describing the situation when he's holding his arm as a 5-year-old holding onto Hulk Hogan. Now, Mike Brown may have been that strong. He could have been. But you are, once again, an officer of the law. I think the situation would have caused for me to drive off, because if someone feels that powerful against me, I'm going to at least move up or something. I have to. There's no way that I'm going to be able to withstand someone that is holding onto me for that long. But let's keep it going.
And then as I'm holding him, I see him coming back around with his left hand. And it's in the shape like this, and it comes in through the window and just a solid punch to the right side of my face.
He's in the car, and I guess he's looking like this because, you know, if you're looking back, that's the only way that bruise is going to end up on the right side of your face. That's the only way that I can see that happening. I'm not sure why he's looking back if the guy is over here, but unless Mike Brown reached in and then his fist like kind of curved. But this is a weird thing, bro. It's weird. I'm not sure how you got me. It's looking really bad for you right now.
Where's your gun at that point?
I keep it on my right hip. I take it out and I come up, I point it at him. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a to shoot me."
So he grabbed the top of his gun and he said, "You're too much of a pussy to shoot me." He grabbed the top of his gun.
And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun.
So he's feeling him grabbing the gun, and he knows in his mind that he's going to try to shoot him with his own gun because he feels him grabbing the trigger in that manner. So was like the gun this way? did he like turn it around? Now the crazy thing about it is I'm asking these questions because these are the questions that would have been asked during a trial. And if those questions were asked, we would have found out that Darren Wilson would be lying because it all sounds like lies. Some of the things that I heard in this interview are very disturbing, especially when he says, "Hey, come here." Now, that indicates that they were far away from Darren Wilson's police vehicle when he calls them and says, "Come here." So I'm not sure how they end up this close to his car. So when he opens the door, Mike Brown pushes the door back. I'm pretty sure that there was some words exchanged, and most likely this officer said something that really pissed off Mike Brown. We're not sure what he said, but we already know how police talk. They talk very bad, especially when they're talking to young black males. If you watch the whole interview, you'll notice that there are loopholes through the whole thing. But my whole thing is this: if this guy was that strong, if you really felt your life was in danger, why is it that you did not pull off? Because that's not in his training. That's what he said. He said that it's not in his training. He always has to go after the person. But you know what's crazy about it? You're also trained to have a heart. You're also trained in morality in a sense. And you have to have a brain, okay? And my brain would have told me that if this person was so strong and they were overpowering me, I am not going to stand there and let them shoot me with my own gun. So if you could have grabbed your gun away from him, or even after you shot him, why are you now going to get out of the car and pursue a chase when you already called for backup? Okay, so he calls for backup and he chased him. He's 35 feet away. 35 feet away. So Mike Brown turns around, comes towards him, and he starts to shoot. He's like, "Oh, I'm not sure if the bullet, I'm not sure where I hit him." This is out of his mouth.
You say he starts to run as the stutter step starts to come towards you. And
At that time, I gave myself another mental check. Can I shoot this guy? Legally, can I? And the question I answered myself was, I have to. If I don't, he will kill me if he gets to me.
even though he's, 35, 40 feet away?
Once he's coming that direction, if he hasn't stopped yet, when's he going to stop? After he's coming at me and I decided to shoot, I fired a series of shots and paused.
What did you see?
I noticed at least one of them hit him. I don't know where, but I saw his body kind of just flinch a little.
That's what he said. He's not sure. He remembers every detail except where he shot him the second time. Okay? And he's shooting numerous times. So all of this shooting, you're not sure. And to skip to the meat of the situation, he talks about how Mike Brown charges towards him, and that's when he shot him in the head. Now, after you watch this video, you ask yourself, well, what happened to his legs? Because, you know, when in police training, they teach you to disable the victim. I'm pretty sure they do. What happened to shooting him in the legs so that he cannot chase you anymore? Is it that he wasn't a good shooter? That could be the case. We don't know. You know, I'm really disturbed by this whole situation because it did not go to trial. If it would have went to trial, it would have been asked these questions. All of the questions that you hear me asking, I have 100 questions actually. That's why I sound so confused. But if I write them down and I get in front of a jury of 12 white people, I'm pretty sure those white people will convict Darren Wilson. They should, because the evidence would be overwhelming. You didn't get a chance to do it. Darren Wilson actually heard the decision over the phone. Okay? He wasn't there to hear the decision right away. And the decision happened really quick. We all know of cases that would have lasted longer. Mike Brown, another life lost. What he did was wrong right before it, but it didn't, he didn't deserve to die. But this is what happens when you're dealing with when you're dealing with a society of police that don't care about young black men. Social media news, official Burn Media, I'm out.